Okay, we should be live. Do you want to type into your phone and make sure? Or into mine?
Right. What am I doing?
The
Yes. Go to YouTube.
yes, YouTube. And you should be typing in. It's Michael Spader. I think it's 7-3.
Oops. No. This means what's it giving me this for?
Just scroll past that.
It always comes up to the top though.
Okay, hold on just a second here. Have to turn on some cameras. Let me get rid of this one. That's okay.
This one.
Oh man, I look pretty fuzzy.
Yes.
Is anybody out there? I wonder. Oh man, now we have something going on. Disconnecting and reconnecting. Okay.
It's on the feet.
See if we can do this. If you're connecting, hello. What's that?
There's a long delay. I turned the sound off. So you wouldn't hear it. Didn't go in the trail. Yeah. But she was.
I can do it.
The heat today.
think if I make this darker, folks, if you're out there, I'm making this darker so that you can see it. And maybe this camera will focus a little bit better on it. I imagine for anybody who's watching this on TV, well, I don't even know if anybody's there yet. I don't understand what the problem is today. OBS, kind of just talking to everybody out there. We're going to wait another, give it, I know it's 10 o'clock there, 10:01. I'm going to give it 4 or 5 minutes to see if people got signed in or not. And if anybody can hear me, it would be, if you can chat, it would be nice to put something in there so that I know that you're hearing me. But I believe you are, if you're there. I know who are signed in but not able to chat. So these first few broadcasts are pretty much just a test to see that this works. All right. I'm assuming, I have to assume. Oh. Hi, Angelo. I'm glad you're there. Do you have any people there? I know you guys are just trying to start setting this up. We're all just trying to see, get this going. And it's particularly difficult here. How cool, Sherry. Glad you're there. Yeah, we're camping. And today, for some reason, the program I'm going through seems to be clicking on and off. So if you get shut out, it should come right back on. Raymond G is in. Good. All right. Well, it's crazy. I haven't done this in years and not live. So it's a new experience for me to figure out. You guys are kind of going to help me figure out any issues that we have. Because I'm not there to see it in person. I'm not there to tell in person. So does everybody have a pattern? I hope that the pattern came through for you guys. If not, you can just copy the one I drew. This one is not quite exactly the same as the pattern, but you could start copying this one. It doesn't have to be exact. And I'm going to actually demonstrate a few tricks here in a minute on how, for those who want to draw it. But let's get started this way. My name is Spader. Hi. And right now we're just going to call this Watercolor Wednesday because we were having the classes on Wednesdays originally. Today we're drawing Buena Vista Church. This is a historic church in Ventura, California. And we should, if there are people there, if there are a handful of people, we should get in touch with each other, shake hands, say hello, take a minute while I'm rambling on to introduce yourselves to each other so that you know who you are. And because you may want to come back and do this every Wednesday. There are some rules that I always have in my classes. So I'm gonna just do a little house cleaning here. We don't do any politics. We don't do any religion. We want everybody to just have a good time. So that's what we're here for, is just to do art and enjoy the day, right? Enjoy the hour and a half that we have. I've made some notes, so I keep looking down there. Um, Another thing, if you're not drawing it, let's move on. Let's get started while you're introducing yourself. There it is. So you guys should be able to see and draw from the actual painting there. That's just a little sketch. These are mostly urban sketches that I did uh, in my own book. So that's what we're working from. This one, Buenaventura, Sherry and I were there a couple of weeks ago. And you can see this is the one I did in my book. So we're doing something similar to that. So I'm just going to take a moment for those of you who are drawing to so let me show you this one. Oh, that's just the lag time.
Yeah.
There. Man, there's a huge lag time. What Sherry and I are noticing is that there's a huge lag time between when I say something or show something and when you actually see it. So first of all, I don't know if you guys had time to get a hold of the transfer paper, the carbon paper to put in the backgrounds. It was listed in the materials from long ago. So in the case that you don't have carbon paper listed, there we go. What you can do is, so I've had people didn't know this trick, and I thought most people did from my childhood, but come on, focus, think. There it is. What you can do is on the back of the pattern is you can just take a dark pencil like this and go all over the back of the pattern. And then when you turn it over, you can just do this and draw it, and it shows through. Can you see that? In time drawing this, I think most people will trace the pattern or transfer the pattern if they have it. So, but what I am going to do is show you a couple of little tricks here. So let's say, first of all, we'll only spend 10 or 15 minutes doing this, and I'm just going to do a small one here so that you have something to work from. If you look at the original picture there, can you see it up in the corner? Um, one thing you want to do is note in your mind that there's some space here, and there's trees all the way from the top over here. So your church needs to fit in this area here, in the middle of this thing. So the first part to look at is the body of the church. We know that it's going to go, and your drawing does not have to be exact. If you look at that line just below the cross, there's a line that goes across. You can just draw a square from that one. So you can just make a little square like this, come up, and come straight out. Just a hair, just a tiny bit, because there's a bit of a reveal for that wall. And then this is very wide, the steeple. Am I going pretty quick there?
No, I'm just showing you.
There you go. Apparently, I have to keep my pencil here to keep this camera focused. I'm going to put a dot here and see if the camera will stay focused on that instead of wiggling around so much. I think we're obviously going to need to invest in a different camera. The roof here, if you look, the roof here on the church is the roof next door to it is just a little bit down. So you can just put that in there. The way you get where the steeple is here, where the not the steeple, but the top of the church there, is to make an X in the middle. Most of you will remember this if you've had it before. Then you come up right up the middle with a line. You can pick how high at what angle your roof is at. I'm going to slow down here. I know I'm going quickly. We thought this might be fun. I'll show you a picture here while you're drawing. Let's see if I can get. We didn't talk about this part. I am in a little tent right in front of our camp trailer. We've been on the road for a month, and we are uh, uh, just a little bit inland from Monterey, California. So it's our first attempt at broadcasting from outside. I thought it would be a lot of fun for you guys, but my camera seems to be suffering with the dappled light that's falling on the paper. And the reason I keep moving this out of the way is that the controls for the cameras are right here. Okay. This doesn't have to be any specific height, but this back line, I'm trying to put it in between this area that I've created here. And it should slant up just a little bit because that part of this is in 2-point perspective. Remember, I'm only drawing this for the few folks that like to draw. I know a lot of people like to transfer the pattern. So I thought I would take this time while people are transferring the pattern to just show you some of the some of the things that make it easier to draw or easy to draw. Of course, after you get this in here, there's a thing that I'm not sure is in the pattern. It's right here on the left. And what it is, there's this, I guess it's called a buttress. It is a piece of wall that sticks out toward us that helps hold the building up. And it has little angles on it. So, for instance, this part, when we paint it, will be painted dark. And so will this part, or light, excuse me, light. And this will be dark because it's wall and wall. You'll see. You can see it in the actual painting. The door is actually, if you look at that painting, the door is small. So it's below that X. If you look at about this height here, below the X, the top of the door is there. And the placement of this cross piece that goes across, you can do it just at the X, might make it the easiest, just at the, what is that, the apex? And then you can make this triangle come down. There are those Spanish tiles. What time is it? Okay, 18 after. So everybody's probably got the thing copied. We looked at the person next to us and said hi. Oh man, I forgot a big one. While you're finishing up that drawing, we should be wetting the paint. Everybody should be wetting the paint. Do that from the start. And what you can do, I'm going to show you right here. You can just take your brush. If you don't have a little squirt bottle, just take your brush, dip it in there, and drop some water into each color of paint. Now, this is only if the paint has had an opportunity to dry overnight or a little longer. So if it's been sitting for a few days, especially in a dry climate, you may want to put a little more than just a few drops. What you don't want to make it into soup. You just want it to be damp enough that you can do this and get some color off of it. Okay, I've got my paint sitting right here. I've got my water sitting next to it. And I imagine you're on the TV. I don't know. If you're on the television, I imagine this really looks pretty hokey, pretty split up. The the low resolution of the video along with the big screen. So I'm going to move this now, and because I've got mine drawn down below, I drew that just 20 minutes ago, and you will see from the picture that it's not quite the same as the other ones. Give me just a minute, and we will ink these a little bit. Man, that's a heck of a lag. Sherry is sitting right here. A lot of you know Sherry, and so I'm I'm currently checking out her phone to see what the view is, to see what's going on. Okay, so you should be able to see mine. For a lot of folks, I do it this way. I don't know that you all want to, but personally, I like that little bit of a border on it. So I tape mine down just so it's in one spot. Just putting a little bit of the tape over the edge, and that gives us should be on the view. It's not. Just a little over the edge. I go all around. Some people like to tape the corners, and some folks don't tape it. One of the advantages to not taping it, if you don't have a way to pick your board up, which in this particular case, I cannot pick my board up because there's a lot of stuff on it. But if you're using, for instance, the clipboards, then you can pick that up and make a wash run down. I don't have that ability on this particular painting. I will use a foam core or something on the next one. I also have a piece of Carhartt old t-shirt that most of you should know what that is, and if you don't, just have some kitchen table or a table paper towels or something like that that you can dab onto. I use mine a lot, or I use my clothes a lot. Also, in this one, I'm going to mention this. We don't have this. It's not in my material supply list for these classes, but it wouldn't hurt you to get one of these. I've been really having a lot of fun with this Jelly Roll Aught 8. It's just, I don't know, it's a jelly ink pen, and they're a lot of fun, but I'll show you why in a while. All right, we're getting ready to paint. Everybody's got a pattern transferred. So I was telling some jokes in class, in the live classes, and now I have a joke here. Sherry and I stay a lot of time. We spend a lot of time together, and we're in the camp trailer a lot together. And there's just nothing I wouldn't do for her. And, I feel like there's nothing she wouldn't do for me. So we spend a lot of time doing nothing for each other. Not really. Not. All right. Where should we start? Let's start with the sky. On this one, I'm not going to get too crazy with the sky because I don't want it to. I'm just mixing some ultramarine blue into a mess that I had. You can work with a clean palette and use ultramarine blue. I generally just mix all the blues and a little bit of other stuff in one area. And so when I do that, it's called neutralizing. So when I add that ultramarine blue in here, it gives me, if you have a test sheet, you can see, it gives me a little color that's not as bright, not quite as bright as a bright blue would normally be, as the ultramarine would normally be. I like the things that are slightly neutralized, it's called. So on this sky, you can, one way to do it is to just get a lot of paint mixed up, start at the top, and go all the way across, and then keep coming down. and we'll do some of that. But I'm going to show you, if you kind of dry brush a little bit, you can indicate clouds in the sky. If you see that I'm holding my brush sideways, so that there's little bits of cloud up in there. And I'm letting the paint get thinner and softer, whoops, as I come down toward the building. You don't want to go back in messing with it, because that makes it uh, have mistakes in it. The more that you think you did something wrong, don't worry about it. Just leave it. Because see right here where I'm going back in, I didn't leave enough of a wet edge. See how it's getting darker up there? It's not really as good as it could be. But, and in here, there's going to be trees and branches and stuff that's in the pattern. So I'm just putting some light blue in there, and I'll probably do the same over on the other side. Putting some light blue in here where there's going to be some sky holes in the green. Over here as well, we have just something so that it's not just dead white paper. Okay, so here's another dad joke. How many rabbits does it take to screw in a light bulb? Keep moving to the side there. How many rabbits does it take to screw into a light bulb? I do wish that wouldn't do that. Keep going offline. We will find a way to fix that. Down in the bottom of the painting, you can see this area down here. In actuality, there's kind of a brick down there. It had brick, but you can see all these little lines that I put in it that are just kind of to show, just to give an idea that there's movement down there. And in reality, right here in this corner is a huge water fountain. And the water fountain it spills over on purpose and goes through a trough in the sidewalk and drains down the street. It's a beautiful thing to see. And anyway, it's very creative, I thought. So down here, we're just going to put in some, this is just a light mix I'm going to use on this one. I'm going to make it just a little bit redder than the one I did there, than the one depicted. So let's take some yellow ochre, just a little bit of yellow ochre while our sky is drawing. And you can make it whatever color you want, but you want it to be light. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of, let's say, burnt sienna. That's the lighter of the two browns that you probably have. You want it to be a fairly thin mixture. When you're doing it, also, you can put in some how here. I'm just putting a little bit of color. Be sure and get in between those trees if you drew those in there. Oops, that's in a tree right there. But this is not a tree down here. But while it's still wet, you can put some areas slightly darker, a little bit lighter, and it tends to, when it dries, it gives you just a little bit of character in the thing. That's pretty funny. I'm calming down now, but as much as I teach in person, talking online there live just really kind of threw me off there for a while. It's kind of nerve wracking. My gosh. So I put just a hair of that darker color in just to give it some movement in the page. You don't have to do that, but you certainly can. Okay, while that's drying, you can feel your feel your sky. If it feels pretty dry, we can come back and start. You have, I believe, sap green. Some of you may have azo green. What you're looking for is a slightly khaki green, khaki color. And you may want to start with it a little lighter. So you can do a couple things. If you want it to be a bright color, you would use, let's see here. Can you see all these colors? You would use a little bit of the lighter of the two yellows that you have. That's probably lemon yellow in your kit. And you can lighten it up a little bit that way. You could also khaki it up by putting in a little bit of the yellow ochre. But the sun is kind of coming this direction. See the shadow of my hand? So the sun is coming in like this. So you want to make this part of the sky a little lighter than you would the rest of it. And you can put just a dot or two here out there. You can come outside the lines. This is not paint by numbers. So don't be afraid to go outside of the lines of your drawing. See how I'm just going into that area there that I painted blue? And I'm just putting a little bit of this light color that I made out here along the edge. Doody-doot. And I might put just a little bit, hey, look, a little visitor. There's a little bug on my canvas there, or on my paper. Sorry, buddy. Go away. Go somewhere else. Okay, now I'm going to add a little ultramarine blue to my green mix and start coming in with a little bit darker color. It's just a darker green. You can add a little ultramarine. You can put in just a touch of the darker of the two browns that you have, and that makes for a very, very dark color. You just kind of mix it up a little bit as you're coming in there. I'm adding a little bit more of those two. So I'm making it just slightly darker as I continue down through my thing there. You don't want your sky holes to look like they match. You know, they should be exactly the same. Oh my gosh, we're getting a tree. I'll put a little more blue in there and a little more green. I just keep kind of switching it up so the tree's not all just one blank color. Although you can do some really nice paintings by doing that very thing, keeping it all one color. And one of these times we'll have a lesson plan that has that style of tree in it. So you just want to come down, you want to go out of the lines a little bit. Every once in a while, you want to come off the edge, maybe down a little bit like that. So you have just a little bit of character to your tree. And let that dry. I'm going to clean my brush just a little bit. And let's see, can you still see this? How's that? Can you see that can you see this part right here? I think you can. So here's the green. Now I want this green on top to be a lighter green and a yellower green. So I'm going to use a lot of ultramarine blue and a lot of lemon yellow and make myself a green that is quite a bit different color than the other tree. Just so you can see that it's done. I'll put in a little bit more blue, and I'm going to start putting in a little of that azo green there and making it just slightly darker. You can go up. Remember that most of this tree on this side is in shade. So it's darker. Maybe I have a few too many sky holes there. Leave one next to the building. Put just a few little things that come in off to the side there. And now I'm going to start adding a little bit of that darker brown and a little more ultramarine blue. Get myself a darker color. I will come in down here and start putting in some dark areas. And stop somewhere down here. If you have a squiggly line there, that's great. If not, just pick a spot and stop down here with this one, because we'll come back and put in a different color. I put a little too much material in a couple areas here, so you'll see me pulling some out. I'm taking my damp brush, wiping it on my rag, dipping it in the water, dry it on the rag, and then pull it out. So I can have some more movement, some light areas in my tree. See, how much time do we have left? We still have a while. We're doing okay. Now, while that's drying, that's still slightly wet there. I'm going to go ahead and mix up another green. Use a little bit of, there we go, that with that cad yellow. But that's a whole nother on color theory. And I'm going to do the same thing as I go along. I'm adding little bits of different materials. So I just put in a little lemon yellow into that mix. And then toward the bottom of it, I'll get darker again. There's generally, if you look, especially if the sun is semi behind something, the bottom, like when you look at a hedgerow or a bunch of trees, unless the sun is coming through, there's some real dark areas down there. Oops. I made a little bit of a blunder there. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Down here, this bush comes right onto the sidewalk. So I'm going to go ahead and put just some loose things down here and leave it and let it dry. But right here where this pot is, see this little pot? Well, maybe you can't. I didn't draw it in darker. You probably drew it in there. There's a little pot right there. And what I would have liked to have done, see how I came down with this? This is one of those times I don't have one, and you probably don't either. But right there's going to be some foliage, some plants, some flowers, something coming in there. I would have liked to done what's called negative painting and left a little bit more white space. So that's why I'm clearing this out a little bit. You can also take a piece of a paper towel and dab it, and sometimes that will take a lot out. You know what really works at your house? We don't have any here, but if you're painting at home, for that particular situation, if you're using really nice paper, you can take what's that sponge that Mr. No, it's a sponge that cleans. It's a Mr. Clean. Sherry says it's Mr. Clean. And that little bitty sponge, you can actually erase that, but you have to be very careful because it's very difficult on the paper. So your next treatment, whatever you put, I'm just going to use that. We have burnt sienna here. And with my burnt sienna, I'm going to add just a touch of cadmium red, make it just a little redder than the burnt sienna is. And we'll just come across here. Remember, this is Spanish tile, so they have a curve at the top. You don't have to follow your line specifically. We're going to come back with some details in a while. So right now we're just getting a little color in there. Got a little too much paint on my brush. And it should kind of be wavy down here, but you don't have to be too exact with it. Don't try to be too exacting with your paints, because now, especially with AI coming on, there's a big move toward looser and looser. A good way to enjoy some time with friends or even Sherry. Hard time the other day. She never gives me a hard time, really. But I was bored and she wanted to watch a program and I didn't want to watch the program. So she said, "Well, why didn't you draw something? You haven't drawn anything today." So I sat down and did a whole page of thumbnails. I had a great time. I love to draw. Just start drawing. Draw your pencils. Draw your brushes. Draw your paint palette. Draw the things in your kitchen, or draw the whole kitchen. I have to apologize for all the shadows on here. I really didn't realize how much this painting outside affects the view here. But I have to tell you, it's really nice. Do you hear any birds in the background? They're pretty much stopping, and there are cars driving by, but the birds are pretty much getting over with now. Okay, stuff is getting dried up, so we can move on. Down here on the bottom, I'm going to take just a little bit. Let's say the lighter of the two browns. That's too dark, and I'm going to put some yellow ochre in there, and it's very dark. So I want that to be just light colors on my, and I'm just going to indicate a few little lines What you don't want to do, don't put anything that's from side to side like this all the way. You can put a few little marks that are here like this, but don't put big marks. You want most of your marks to lead kind of into the subject. And then later we're going to come back with our pencil and put in a little bit of something there. All right. For the color of the building, I'm going right back into where I had the browns mixed. I'm going to put a lot of yellow ochre in there. That's the way I'm going to make this one. It actually has, in real life, I believe, I don't have the picture in front of me, but in real life, I think that building had like a light buff color. You should have, hopefully you have a test piece. I'm going to just test my color here on this scrap piece of paper, if you can see that. I don't want to put it in front of you because I think that's a little bit dark. I'm going to go a little lighter than that. So I'm going to put a lot more water in my mix and see if I can lighten it up a little like that. How's that? And it'll dry, of course, even a little bit lighter. You want to test your roof. You don't want your roof bleeding into your building. So I'm going to start here on the left because I'm right-handed. You may want to start over on the left or the right if you're left-handed. And I'm just going to start putting in building here. You could actually paint the trees because we're going to go a little darker with them. But I'm going to just paint in the parts here that are building just so they have a little color in them. And this paint I'm using is a little bit too wet, really, but it's working. I had a little too much on my brush. And here I'm going to do some of that negative painting I was talking about, leave some area for that plant. And all of this I'm just going to get a basic color on. Now, while you're doing that, some people do the same thing that I was talking about. As you're doing an area, go ahead and grab just a little teeny piece of something darker and put little bits of movement in the wall. So I'm using that burnt umber. That's the darker of your two browns. Just something so that it's not just all dead, flat, one color. Okay? I'm going to move on to... We're just going to paint the whole thing, because all the details on the church are all except, watch this. See this piece right here? Let me show you. This thing that comes down, this is what I was talking about. Well, I guess we can go ahead and paint that. We can paint it very top here as I go along. You don't want it to look like a spot. You just want it to look a little darker. Okay. And we're just going to fill in the whole area light enough that we can still see our lines, because we have some trim to put up there in a few minutes. These two things, this and this, are actually like a scroll hanging down, or I don't know what they are. I'm not Catholic, so, but you want to leave those light. They were very light in real life, and they had some writing on them. So we will address that here momentarily. Now, I left out, there is a bush here that I didn't draw. There's one here that I didn't draw, and I think there's a couple down here. So you want to, if you have those drawn in, you want to try and negative paint, leave a little space where those potted plants will go. I'm just going to put mine right over what I've done there. And the top here, you can leave it white. You can paint it this very light color if you want. The dome piece on the top, I'm going to remember as I come down here to remember that that plant is there. So I'll leave a little negative for it. Do a little negative painting around it. I'm going to leave the dome white just because I'm goofy like that, because it has some little stripes in it. They're about the color of the terracotta coming down that we're going to put in there. They're not really the color of the terracotta, they're darker. So now, while my building is drying, that one's probably going to spot right there. While my building is drying, I'm going to take a pencil. Any pencil will do if it's kind of sharp. And we haven't had a perspective lesson yet. Obviously, this is just starting. But I'm going to just indicate. See right here where the stairs end? I'm just going to indicate that there is some cracks in the sidewalk there. I'm going to put them a little bit going out. As I get away from this center line, they turn more and more away from more to the toward the horizontal, and they do the same thing on this side. As they get away from the center line, they tend to turn more and more this. And we don't want to draw straight, perfect lines. It's indication that there is something, there's brick laying there, and you might put a cross piece here and there. Now, normally, I'm doing these in pencil, but normally for myself, I do all of these drawing things with a fountain pen instead because I just like the look of a fountain pen. Oops. You know what else I could do? I can paint that just the base color on this. Leave the pot. Don't go over the pot and the plant. And there is a base color here on this one. Incidentally, I am using can you see that? Will it focus on it? I don't know if I pull it up here, it's too dark there. This is a Princeton Heritage Round, a Princeton Heritage Round, number 8. And I find that they hold a point very well. So you can do a lot of sharp things, although number 6 or a liner for some small things. But I can do the majority of these 5x7 paintings with this one brush, this or a number 10. And they last for a while if you don't stab into the paint too directly. Tend to wear them out when you do this to get paint on your brush. You should do this. I think your roof is dry. So you can also do just put a couple of lines in your roof like that. Or you can put a couple of these little arches here and there. Remember that you're not trying to be exact. You're not trying to be literal. You're just trying to indicate something. To let the viewer. It's a funny thing about our eyes. They're very well trained. So if it just shows a piece of a detail, the brain makes a picture out of it. Okay? Everybody way past me. Every once in a while I do something that you really need to be paying attention to. So it really messes up your painting if you get too far ahead of me. I know sometimes we're trying to include everybody. So we need to move at a pace that's somewhere in the middle. Okay. So the door. Let's see what color. The door is really a brown, if I remember right. But
Blue in the picture.
I think I'm going to make it a blue. It might have even been a blue. I don't know if you have any of this in your kit. A very light blue of some kind. This is a teal. Okay. I'm just going to use that, even though that is not. And Sherry's stealing with her brush out of my kit. She's stealing some of that teal blue. I'm going to put a very light blue there just for the fun of it, although it's not light blue in real life, I'm sure. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was a dark blue. But here again, I'm just trying to capture the moment and the memory and enjoy the experience of doing it. Okay, while that's drying up, the door is drying, the building is drying up, let's address these pots. The pots are pretty much terracotta. So I'm going to go back to, I'm just going to use straight. Actually, we can go a different color. What did I make them there? I made them pretty red terracotta, didn't I? But I'm going to just do them with the burnt sienna. That's the lighter of the two browns that you have. And let's see, I think I had one in here somewhere. And one over here. And they're so small, I'm almost just painting little dots where they are because they're tiny. They're just a little spot there. And we'll let those dry. Now the stairs were not brown. But let's, because the pots are wet, I'm going to leave the stairs for another moment or two. Let's get up here into the tower here. That really is these two things here These two, where the bell is, we're not going to put a bell in because the painting is so small. But where the bell is, and this little window that's in here somewhere, like right here, there's a little window. Those are really very dark. Above the window, oh, it's dark brown. And I'm going to make a very, and I'm just going to put in, you may want to do this with a smaller brush, as it is pretty tight. I'm just going to put in a dark area there. I'm leaving that white area there because I'm going to put a slightly lighter color right there for the relief, but you really don't have to. That's not absolutely necessary. And I'm just going to put a little square window thing here just so we have an indication that it was there. Okay, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush for this next part. I'm going to use a liner. This is a number 6 liner, but you can use a number 4, a number 3 of the Princeton brush, or whatever you have that's a little bit smaller for fine lines. We're going to put in some of this trim around the church. And if this one's a little different, it'll be an opportunity to learn how to do water, ocean, and but it's not as complicated, quite as complicated as this one. On that trim, I'm going to take straight burnt umber. So that's that dark brown. I'm just mixing some of that dark brown in there. I'm not looking at what I really did in the original. And if you can see how I'm holding my hand, I tried. Now there's painters. I'm going to do them both ways just to show you. I like to do this. Just pick a spot and look where I'm going and head for it. There are a lot of painters, and it's very valid. It's a good way to do it, is just to put a piece and then another piece so that your thing doesn't look quite so perfect. So this one is a little less, see how perfect this one is, and this one's a little wiggly? You can do it whichever makes you happy. You have to remember, you're the boss of your painting. I'm just showing you pieces. So all of these little trim things are part of that. We have that one that goes there. We have a little one here. And we're using that burnt umber for all the trim pieces. Even this piece that goes right across the top here is some kind of a trim. This church, obviously you can see that it's been there since 1782. And I did have quite a bit of history of it, but I've pretty much forgotten most of it. But it has been remodeled like all of them. You know, all of the old Spanish missions. OBS is, this is really annoying me. And I'm sure you too. I apologize for the fact that this doggone program keeps going offline and then coming back online. Okay. Now we're going to do one that's not too difficult, but a little different. So I'm going to a little bit. Here's that same brown that I was using for the trim. I'm going to put just a little bit of blue in there. And I don't know. I think I'm going to just put blue, just a little blue and a little. And I don't want it to be terribly dark, but I want it to be darker than the walls. And I want it to have a little bit of a blue. You can put a shadow side to this with a little bit more of a finished look. Remember, you're coming down on a plant, so you may want to leave a little bit there. You may want to put just a slight arc over here of that shadow on the top. And I think my shadow is a little bit dark, so I'm going to lighten up for this next part. You can put right under the roof or the eave there, you can put a little shadow there and a little shadow here. You can put just a hair of a shadow under these details. On this one, you would only have a shadow on this one side because the sun is coming in this direction. And you would have a little bit of a shadow under it. Maybe a little bit of shadow there, little shadow there. Over here we have straight walls, so you can put a little shadow in there like that if you want. And you can put one here. You can also, an important one, is right in the door on the right-hand side, starting in the top, you have a little bit of a shadow there, and you have a relief that would be dark. These lines that I didn't really put in the brown have a bit of a shadow under here. And then from each of the pots, there is a little bit of a shadow coming out to the left. You can make them just a little darker, or you can, there's a little bit of a shadow there. These paintings are so small. Like I say, we're not trying to be exact. Not everything's going to be perfect. But I'm going to use a little bit of this shadow color to make these stairs because they were actually kind of a gray, like cement. There's a lot more with shadows you can do. You can make this whole front shadowed. You can make the whole front of the church in shadow. You can make this shadow come over like this and come down if you want. You see what I'm saying? It probably would do that. I'll do it just so you can see what I'm talking about. You don't have to make the drawing be nice and be interesting, but you could make this shadow come this way like this so that it's wider. But to make it interesting, now what I want to do is, you see this square on top? If everybody's just about finished with their shadows. Right here, I'm going to take a little bit of moisture and put it on that top square. And I'm going to take my towel or whatever and just rub so that there's a little lighter spot there. And I'm going to skip an area. And then on this next one, I'm going to do the same thing. I think I drew in one too many lines on mine. And I'm going to make these tops lighter because this thing comes out toward us. You see what can you see that? See what I'm doing there? I hope it shows up on the camera. These cameras are pretty inexpensive, we will say. Let's don't say that I'm cheap. Let's just say they're inexpensive. Watch a lady, the art prop. If any of you are do YouTube on a regular basis, the art prop, she's terrific if you want to get a little further ahead with your paintings. She really does nice stuff. But this setup that I'm using is what she recommended. And it's what she uses to teach on YouTube. And I'm just experimenting with it to see if that's what I want to stay with. Or I'm putting a little shadow here that I had neglected to do under where the roof hangs over. The tile roof hangs over. Yes, the eave. Well, it's not really an eave. It's I don't know. The eave is on the end, isn't it? Who knows? Okay, we're getting down to the end. And I'm going to take my pencil and just put a few scribbly lines in here. We don't know what that said, but we want to indicate that there were some words in there. And I'm going to take my fine brush and some of that burnt sienna, the lighter of the two browns, and get it kind of thick on the end of my brush. I don't want it runny. And I'm going to put one line there, a line down the middle, and a line down the side, just so that indicates a dome. You can leave your crosses at the top. Usually in urban sketches and in a lot of paintings, you will see the crosses being dark because that makes them show up against the sky. If you like to do churches, one of these gel pens is good, but I'm going to show you something here. I'm going to put this in here and it probably won't even show because the sky is light. The only way to make a white cross really show up, or at least one of the easiest ways, is to put a very dark sky. The next way is to draw the cross three-dimensionally so that you can just put the shadows of the cross on the part of the cross that recedes. But on these small sketches, it's really just very difficult and time-consuming to do that. I'm going to go ahead and put some flowers in here. And this part, I'm going to make it I'm going to go ahead and go lighter so that it shows up a little bit. I'm going to put in some pretty light green in here, just so we can see that they're there. And I'll put in a little dark green on the left side because that's our shadow side. See how it's bleeding into that? I'll put some light green on this one. And there's some dark green over here on the shadow side. And this one would probably have some shadow on the right side, but I'm not going to worry about it. They're so small. Let's see here. Go ahead and fill in any of these little white spots with some green. And a little darker green on these right here. I'm going to break this line. Watch this. This is an art thing. See this? I could put this down here, but it's more interesting if it goes across that line. And a little bit on the left, a little bit of dark on the left, a little bit of dark on the left. Oh, what did I do here? I got two pots. I got pot on top of pot somehow. I don't know what I was thinking there. But what I'm going to do is make the whole thing one big pot of green, even though it's pretty much lower than that one. And for fun, I'm now going to pick a color. You can use red, you can use yellow. I'm going to, because I have that teal in the door, I'm going to use some teal. Whoa, that took over, didn't it? That one's still pretty wet, so I'm going to put a little teal dots here and there to indicate some kind of flowers. If it takes over like that, it's actually kind of good because it just looks like there was a multitude of flowers there. Remember to break a line when you get a chance. To go over a line, if there's a line there and you can put something outside of it like that, it adds more interest. Okay, let's get these trees done quickly. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to take a little bit of the darker brown. That's burnt umber, is the brown that the darker of your two browns. And those trees, I'm going to come down. They're really kind of grayish, but I'm going to use brown. I'm going to come down first with this. They wiggled. There's a lot more detail. These trees, this type of tree that we can't put in, or we just don't have time to play with today. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to come down with just some color. That's just straight burnt umber, the darker color. And then once I've got that on there, I'm going to come back with a little ultramarine mixed in with my burnt umber in a little bit of a thicker color so it doesn't run so very much, and just put some areas usually on the left side. Just dab it. See how it's creeping over there as I do that? I'm going to dab some over on this side and some down here. You might go all the way across on the top of it because they do that. And you might go across in a few places. And I'm going to come up here with my pencil and just indicate just a few branches going in here. You don't have to put them in all. And you can just go right through and put a little bit of pencil lines here and there. And it, oddly enough, it adds a little interest to your tree. You can see how I'm adding a little bit of definition with the pencil. Oops. Let's go ahead with this one. Where that white relief is that we left there, you want some of that darker brown, but not as dark as that black area. You just want a little brown in there. If you can manage it. It's tough. I think that's where we're going to leave this one. Oh, yeah, you should always. If you mess up or if you feel like it's a little, didn't come out quite right, finish it anyway. It always pays off. Even if it's a little goofy looking, you finished and you learn more from mistakes than you do from actually doing them right all the time. But don't forget to sign it and date it. I just put the year, but you can put the month, the year. And then let's see what we have here. I believe we're about to the end of this. I'm going to pull my tape off, and here's a trick too. If you pull your tape off this way slowly, or the other way slowly like that, you won't tear your paper. See this? You don't want to pull straight down. You want to pull this way like that, and it doesn't tear. Okay? And there you go. There's a little sketch that you can have a memory from. I don't know if any of you would be interested to see if any of you went to Ventura Ca. Another dad joke as we go away. I cut back on my eating of red meat. There we go. Oh, thank you. This I'll work on this OBS disconnect reconnect problem and see what can be done about it. Hopefully, it didn't destroy or cause you too much difficulty. See you next week, same time, same place. See you next week, same time, same place. Take care. By the way, if any of the proctors need to, you can also call me or you can still get into the text here for the next few seconds.